You know the cycle. I mean, at this point, it's almost a ritual, isn't it? A big scandal breaks in Parliament.
Oh, yeah. It's all over the news.
Every front page. Misconduct, broken rules, you name it. Then come the frantic meetings, the cameras on the front lawn, and eventually someone resigns.
And then comes the chorus.
Exactly. You hear it from the podiums, this was a regrettable lapse, or we need to work hard now to restore trust.
It's the standard playbook. The assumption is always that the system is basically fine and this was just, a blip.
Right, and it feels like the logical thing to say, trust was lost, so you have to restore it. But today, we're doing a deep dive into something that turns that whole idea on its head.
We are.
It's a piece of analysis called The Fragility of Trust, a case for structural reform. And it basically argues that the instinct to restore trust might actually be the problem.
Not just a problem, but a kind of structural trap. The argument is that this obsession with trust is actually blinding us to the real mechanical failures.
Which is such a wild idea when you first hear it. Like, are we saying that relying on trust is a design flaw?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know. But the source asks you to look at this, not as a moral issue, but as an engineering one.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. If you have a bridge that requires everyone driving over it to truly believe in it, for it to stay up, well, that's just a badly designed bridge.
That's a terrifying bridge. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. So that's our mission today. We're going to unpack why good character can't save a political system and why hoping for good chaps is the wrong approach.
And to do that, we have to start with the story we tell ourselves every time something goes wrong. The source calls it the exception fallacy.
Right, let's get into that. So a senior minister resigns in disgrace. What's the immediate narrative we always hear?
It's a bad apple.
Always. He was a
Okay.
bad apple. Or a momentary lapse in judgment. My personal favorite is, he's become a distraction.
The story is always that the machinery's fine, the system works. It's just that this one person, made a mistake or wasn't the right fit. It frames the failure as a total surprise, an anomaly.
But the data tells a very different story, doesn't it? This is where it gets really powerful, because it stops being about feelings and starts being about numbers.
The picture changes completely. The text points out that if you look at the last, say, 25 or 30 years in the UK, this isn't rare at all. A really significant proportion of senior ministers have been forced to resign or move under ethical pressure.
And this isn't a one-party thing?
No, it's consistent across administrations.
The source does this great bit of math. It says, okay, take a typical cabinet, about 21 people.
Right, 21 chairs around that table. If you look at the cumulative rate of disruption of scandal over the decades, the turnover is just too high to be an accident.
It uses this great analogy. If you ran a football team and a third of your players got ejected every few seasons, you wouldn't just say, oh, bad luck with those players.
No, you'd ask what's wrong with the coaching or the rules. You'd probably fire the manager.
You'd rewrite the playbook. But in politics, we just act shocked every single time. Ugh, how could this possibly have happened again?
And that's the psychological trick. It's a comforting one. By treating every scandal as a one-off, as a bad apple, we get to keep believing the rules are sound.
We get to tell ourselves the system is fine, it's just that this guy wasn't.
Exactly. It's a defense mechanism. Because if you admit it's a recurring feature, you have to admit the system itself might be broken. And that's a much bigger problem.
It's a terrifying problem.
Yeah. Admitting the barrel is rotting means you have to replace the whole barrel. That's hard. Saying it's just one bad apple means you can just swap them out, say sorry, and move on.
So we sacrifice the individual to save our faith in the institution.
Precisely. Which leads us right to the core of this. What do we even mean by trust? The source asks this really simple question. What is trust in Parliament?
For most people, I guess it's believing they're not being lied to. Believing politicians are working for the public good.
Sure, that's the emotional definition. But mechanically, in this context, trust isn't about evidence. It's about belief. It's the belief that people will act in good faith without being forced to.
Okay, so this is the good chap theory, right? I've heard that phrase before. It sounds so old-fashioned.
It is. The good chap theory is basically the idea that the UK system didn't need a rigid written constitution because the people running it all from the same sorts of backgrounds just knew how to play the game properly.
So there's no actual rule saying don't do X, you just don't do it because, I don't know, it would be embarrassing.
It's peer pressure as a form of government. It was
Okay.
self-policing. You didn't need a regulator because a good chap just wouldn't do that sort of thing. But here's the trap, and this is where the source says modern politics just falls apart.
Go on.
When your entire safety net is trust, when the whole system's integrity relies on keeping up this image of good chaps, you actually create fragility.
Wait, how does trust create fragility? That feels wrong. I mean, trust makes things stronger, doesn't it?
In a personal relationship, yes. But in a system of power, think about the incentives. If the whole system depends on the appearance of trust, then what does pointing out a problem feel like?
Uh, like a betrayal.
Exactly. If you're a junior official and you say, I think we need to check the minister's expenses, you're not just doing a procedural check. You're questioning their honor.
You're accusing them of being a bad chap.
You are attacking the very foundation of the system. So pointing out a flaw feels like disloyalty. Tightening the rules feels like an accusation.
Oh, I see. So to protect the idea of trust, you actually encourage people to stay quiet. You create a culture of don't ask, don't tell.
You encourage cover-ups, complicity, silence, because speaking up damages the reputation of the institution, and so the system drifts until the problem gets too big to ignore.
And that's when we hear that other classic phrase.
Draw a line under it and move on.
Yes, the universal political band-aid.
We do it because losing face, losing reputation becomes the biggest risk. Yeah. So you avoid early correction. The source puts it perfectly. Reliance on trust protects fragility.
It's a trap. It really is. And it leads straight to that other thing we always say. If only we had better people in charge.
And better people trap. It's so common. You hear it everywhere. If only politics attracted more decent people.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate. That sounds reasonable. Who doesn't want decent people running the country? Character has to count for something.
Of course it does. No one's saying we should elect villains, but the source makes this brilliant comparison. Think about other systems. Do we design our financial systems based on the goodwill of bankers?
No, absolutely not. We have audits, regulators, endless rules. We assume that without those checks, bad things will happen.
Right. If a bank manager told you, don't worry, I'm a good person, you don't need to check the vault, you'd fire him on the spot. That statement alone is a huge red flag.
Of course.
Do we design nuclear safety systems assuming the operators will just be careful?
No, we have fail-safes for the fail-safes. We assume human error is a given.
We don't even trust ordinary citizens to obey the speed limit out of goodwill. We have speed cameras. And yet, for the most powerful jobs in the country, we fall back on this vague hope that character will be enough.
That's a chilling thought. We have tighter controls on a local bank than we do, in some ways, on the people with the most power because we just assume they're honorable members.
And the source asks, better people, by whose definition? Wrong, according to which values? Character is subjective. Rules should be objective. If the standards were truly enforceable, you wouldn't need to restore them. You just enforce them.
It's like saying we need to restore gravity. You don't. It's just there. If you jump, you fall. The rule works whether you believe in it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The guardrails on the road hold the car, whether the driver is a saint or a maniac.
So this brings us to a really interesting part of the analysis, where the source says, okay, let's take a sideways glance at how another country handles this, specifically France.
Yeah, and the point isn't to say France is perfect. Every system has its issues. It's about looking at the underlying assumptions.
So what's the fundamental difference in the French model?
Well, according to the source, there is a much more open assumption that power and self-interest will naturally overlap.
That sounds pretty cynical.
Or just realistic, maybe.
Yeah.
The idea isn't that everyone is corrupt, but that the temptation is always there. It's human nature. So the public expectation isn't for purity, it's for containment.
Containment, I like that word. It suggests there's a pressure that needs to be managed.
And this is the fascinating part. It completely changes the psychological reaction to a scandal. In the UK, because the whole system is built on trust, when a scandal breaks, it feels like a deep betrayal.
Right, it shatters the illusion. We feel let down.
But in a system built on containment, when misconduct is exposed, it can actually feel like confirmation.
Confirmation. Confirmation of what?
That the system is working. The reaction is, see? He tried to get away with something and the rules caught him. The system doesn't rely on you believing he was a saint in the first place.
Wow, that is a huge mental shift. So in the UK, a scandal proves the system failed. In the containment model, the exposure of the scandal proves the system worked.
It creates a system that isn't, as the source says, Emotionally dependent on believing everyone will behave well.
Emotionally dependent. That really hits home. And the source argues the UK is an outlier in this. We use character as a load-bearing beam.
And that's the key metaphor. When you use a person's character as a structural support, and that person inevitably fails, the whole roof caves in. Other systems just build the walls thicker with rules and regulations.
So the roof stays up no matter who's standing under it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. We've established the bad apple theory is a myth, that trust can make things more fragile, not less. So what's the big takeaway?
The core argument is that trust is brittle. The source is clear. It's not that trust is a bad thing. It's a luxury. But it's brittle when you ask it to do too much work.
It can't be the only thing holding the building up. It can be the nice paint on the walls, but it can't be the concrete foundation.
Perfect analogy. A system dependent on trust struggles to hear bad news early, and it treats every failure as a personal scandal, not a design flaw. It turns politics into a soap opera.
There is a quote near the end of the source that just floored me. I wrote it down. It says, "Trust is what's left over when the system doesn't need it to survive."
It's a brilliant line, isn't it?
It just flips everything around. We think trust is the foundation. This says trust is what? The result.
It's the output, not the input. You get trust because the system works, not the other way around. You trust your car's brakes, not because you have an emotional bond with the manufacturer. You trust them because they're well engineered.
And because that engineering is sound, you don't have to sit there believing in the brakes. You just press the pedal and they work.
And right now, politically, we're driving down the motorway, closing our eyes, and just hoping the brakes work, because the car was built by a gentleman.
And when we crash, we just blame the driver and get back in the same car. Okay, this has honestly changed how I'm going to watch the news from now on.
That's the goal.
Right.
We need to stop looking for reassurance and apologies. The source argues we need to start looking at evidence, at design.
So we've moved from seeing scandals as bad apples to realizing the barrel itself relies too much on the apples being perfect.
And as long as we keep talking about restoring trust, we're just setting ourselves up for the next cycle of shock, outrage, and forgetting.
So we want to leave you with the final provocative thought from the source.
And the question is this: are we truly dealing with a problem of individual behavior in our politics? Or are we just clinging to this idea of trust because redesigning the actual system feels too difficult?
Is it just easier to blame a person than to rewrite the rule book?
It's much easier to fire a minister than to admit your constitution needs an update.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Next time you see one of those headlines, just ask yourself, is this a moral failure or is it a structural one? We'll see you next time.